Good morning, Tracy here. Coming to you from Nova Scotia. We're having a snowy day here. Not a snow day. There is school and work today. However, it is quite snowy outside, but it's that kind of snow where it doesn't really stick too much. So, should be an easy cleanup. And we are in February. It is to be expected. So there's a lot going on in politics right now, which I will not be touching on. However, I like to focus on what I can do and what I can change and what I can plan. So something I am going to sit down with you today is going through how I am planning my 2025 garden. I've been gardening at this location for a little over 10 years, but I didn't get really serious into gardening until my twins were born and once they were around 2 years old. I had gardened up until then, but I really kind of kicked it into high gear after that. I'm very much a gardener that believes in doing it on a budget and making it cost effective because I want to be saving money by growing produce. It's not just for fun for me, it does actually feed my family as well. So I'm going to go through my 7 steps of how I plan my garden, and maybe I'll give you some tips on how you can plan your garden too, whether you have done this for years or if you're just starting out, or maybe you're just thinking of adding a little extra this year to give yourself a little more food security. So the very first thing I do when I'm planning my garden before I put any pen to paper is I think of what my goal for the year is going to be. Now, every year that's a little bit different for me. One year in particular, my goal was to have one entire meal that all the food came out of my garden. Another year was to grow a year's supply of garlic. Every year I try to come up with maybe a different ingredient I want to try, a different way I want to do things, but it kind of gives me like a starting point that I can go back and see if my choices are making sense with my goal. The other thing I do right away before I do anything else is write down what worked, what didn't work, and possible solutions. So to give you an example of that, so one of my goals this year is to have less different variety of items and more quantity of the stuff I am growing. At this point, I do know what we like and what will go fast. So I want to concentrate more on stuff that is working and a lot less on experimenting this year. My second step that I do is I write down. Now, when you see this list, you're going to think that does not that does not go with your mission statement there, girl. So I write down everything I would like to grow. Now, this is not everything I necessarily have space for, but I kind of do start from most desirable to, if I have space for. So there are some things I know I'm going to grow a year's supply of. So for me at this point, I do grow a year's supply of tomatoes to make into tomato products. I do still buy tomatoes for fresh eating in the wintertime. I would like to grow cucumbers so I can have a year's supply of pickles. I already have a year's supply of garlic and more planted out there already. I'd like to have a year's supply of green beans, strawberries for strawberry jam, and my another goal this year is to have enough strawberries for strawberry jam and for frozen strawberries for smoothies and things over the winter. And it goes from there. So, a year's supply of potatoes. That's also important to me. So I'm going to swing you around and I'll show you my list of what I want to grow this year. All right. So as I said, I go through and write what I want to grow. So tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, garlic. And as I'm going, I'll show you my next step. Okay. So this is wish list. And like I said, they're kind of in order of more important to least important. Another goal I have this year is to increase my fruit production. So I have potatoes on there, cabbage. I'd like to up my cabbage production. We grew sorghum last year, and it actually worked out really well. The grain, not so much, but the stalks, the syrup it made was actually really good. I actually used it a few times in baking. So we're going to grow that again, but my husband has it in his head. He wants to make a sorghum broom. So I wanted to get a different type of sorghum so he can do that. Peas, zucchini. This is stuff that I pretty much always grow. I'm going to show you my list from last year. Maybe then you'll see that I actually did cut a few things off this list. Leeks. One thing I did cut off this list is onions. I am going to still do a few onions, but I'm not going to dedicate a whole bed to them. Beets, pumpkins, and I also sell seedlings in the spring. So I'm not going to necessarily grow cucamelons for myself, but my cucamelons sold out almost immediately last year. And a lot of people asked me about bell pepper. And then over here, I just have different herbs. Herbs are so easy to just stick in anywhere, and you can easily, in a small space, grow a year's supply of herbs if you want to dry them or freeze them. Radish and turnip are kind of just chilling out here on the end as well. Radish is like a 35-day crop, so you can really plunk it in somewhere where other stuff's getting established and just pull it when it is ready. Same thing with turnip. It's a little bit longer, but I think probably like 6 turnip is probably a year's supply of turnip for us, so that's really easy just to stick those in any empty spaces. So that's my wish list. And I'll go back to my wish list of last year. Everything is in this same book, which makes it nice. So this is last year. Now, I did put my last frost here was June 1st. That's generally when it is. Sometimes actually a little bit below that. So yeah, I had onions, which I don't have. I'm not going to do as many greens this year. Pak choy and bok choy and Chinese cabbage all bolted on me pretty quickly. So I don't think I'm going to bother wasting space on those. Kohlrabi as well. I'm not going to do those this year. I'm not going to do as many squash. I've had trouble with cucumber beetles. So I did get one thing of squash to try, but I might just plant 2 or 3. And then some of these are just flowers that I don't really need to start these. I have lots, especially any perennial flowers I already have growing. So that's my last year's list. So you look, I did pare it down. All right, so I make a list of what I want to grow. The next thing I do, so what step are we on? 3? The next step I do is I do a grid and draw out what my existing garden looks like. So in order to fit this on the 2 pages, the width of one block is a foot, but then the length is 1.3 feet. So this is a 3 by 8 garden. This is a 3 by 25 foot garden. That was just to be able to fit it on the paper nicely. Yes, I did sit down and figure it out so that it would make sense. But yes, that's not necessary, but that is necessary for me visually. Okay, so I draw everything out, but I don't fill anything in. And some of this stuff is new. So these garden beds are here, but there are 3 garden beds here that are 4 by 8 garden beds. I'm going to eliminate those and extend these rows. That's one thing I plan on doing differently. 3 of these raspberry beds are here, but this one's a bit shorter. So I'm going to add another raspberry bed here and elongate this one. I have plenty of raspberry canes popping up everywhere that I can just fill these spaces in. And I feel like I'm going to do something else. This is a long bed, and then there's a peach tree right here. I'm going to eliminate that peach tree this year so I can get in another full bed. Usually what I do is I color code anything I'm going to change, but where it's so few changes this year, I don't think it's very necessary. This space right here is actually where my house is. Yes, my garden is all in my front yard. But I'm going to make a cucumber tunnel in a different part of my yard to try to combat cucumber beetles. So I just put it here on the inset of the house, but it's not actually in this physical location. So then when I got through, and this is a greenhouse, so there's no growing here, but I will stick some peppers in there. Okay, so what I do first is I put in any perennials and anything that's already planted. So my garlic is already planted. And these are 25-foot rows. So 3 25 by 3-foot rows is all garlic. That's 1,000 bulbs of garlic. This is strawberries. And then last in the fall, I extended them to this row as well. I don't know how well this row is going to perform, but these 2 rows are strawberries. So there I have that many rows already. And there's chives here. That's another perennial. My 2 rhubarb plants, those are perennials. This Charlie garden is a memorial garden for our dog that passed in 2023. Raspberries, of course, are there. This is asparagus, also a perennial. Pascap, also a perennial. So when it comes down to it, I'm only planting a few beds. So I know personally to grow a year's supply of potatoes for us is 4 beds. So potatoes last year were these beds, this bed, and half of this row. So I don't want to plant potatoes in the exact same space, so that doesn't give me a whole lot of options. Anyway, I just kind of go through. I'm not too fussy about it. The sun is coming this way, so this way is north. Anything I grow here, I kind of like it to be a little bit shorter, and then the taller items, because the sun kind of comes like this. You want to know where your sunniest spots are. These are my most shaded spots, these asparagus gardens, but they're not that shady in the spring, which is when asparagus is coming up. And then as the trees fill in, these get more shaded. Beets can also deal with a little bit of shade. These aren't shaded, but they are less sunny than, say, these gardens here where I'm putting my tomatoes and my peppers. So that's important to know where your sun is to optimize. So after I have everything marked out, and I'm referring back to my list, like what is my wish list, where am I going to be able to fit it in? Like I said, I don't worry about fitting in herbs. I do always put basil in with my tomatoes, and I always grow dill in with my cucumbers, and I can stick a cilantro wherever. Yeah, I don't worry about herbs too much. This says greens and sorghum and greens. This might be another sorghum bed. I might do my 2 sorghum. Like I said, I'm cutting way down on my greens. This little arrow is here because I'm going to shorten this bed because these rhubarbs are getting big enough now that they're shading out the edge of that bed. So I'm just going to reduce this bed to a 3-foot bed. Eventually, I'd like to have all my beds be 3-foot beds because I am only 5'6" and I find it difficult to reach into the middle of the bed without stepping on it. So going forward, that is my plan. So yeah, I sort of sat down, I sketch everything out. I do try to make it as to scale as possible. This is our back step. And this is going to change as well. This fence isn't actually here right now. There is a fence that goes here, but this part doesn't exist. That's a renovation we have planned for the yard for this year as well. So after I have everything marked out and I have a space for everything, I go back to my what I want to grow list. All right, so this is my seed bin. It's nothing fancy. It's a bin I already had. Yes, it's a bit cracked. And this is what I keep my seeds in. I do a lot of seed saving. So anything that's in these little brown envelopes are saved seeds. So this wasn't this organized 2 weeks ago. Believe me, this is much better than it was. I tend to just throw everything in here during the growing season and I sort it out on the back end. So I kind of group everything by type and when I start it. So this is all cucumbers. This is all squash. So cucumbers, winter squash, summer squash, and pumpkins. This is herbs. This is all flowers. So I know I don't need any flower seeds because I just save all mine. And I might even try to do a little bartering with some of these. Nasturtium seeds and then marigolds. Those are a nice marigold. I'm not sure why these are in here. These are the tomato seeds I have and peppers, tomatoes and peppers. I usually start near the same time. I consider them their same family. This is parsley, but this is herbs, but this is mostly bought herbs. This is kind of miscellaneous. We have celery, we have asparagus, and some onion seeds. So like I wasn't going to bother starting onions, but I do have 1 pack of seeds, so I might as well use it. Onion seeds especially do not last that long. This is all root vegetables, so beets and carrots, turnips, radishes, and then I have brassicas, Napa cabbage, a bunch of the stuff I said I'm not going to grow. And then I have any of my beans and peas in here. So then I go back to my list. So I kind of make like a mental inventory. I do tend to grow a lot of the same stuff every year, so I know what I do have. Beans, I almost never have to buy beans because I just save them every year. So then what I do is I go back to my list. So tomatoes, I need cherry tomato seeds. I don't have any cherry tomatoes. I have not found a good heirloom cherry tomato. They're always hybrid, which means I can't save the seeds and get the same tomato. So I do end up buying. And cherry tomatoes are a really good seller for seedlings. So I end up buying cherry tomato seeds. And I'm kind of particular about my cherry tomatoes, so I haven't actually bought those yet, but I will soon. And a lot of people last year asked me for, specifically for beefsteak. I tend to go more towards heirloom tomatoes because I do like to save my seeds, but so many people ask me specifically for beefsteak that I want to get a beefsteak seeds. Cucumbers, I need seeds. Beans, garlic, strawberries, raspberries, I'm fine. Potatoes, I just saved my potatoes. So last year I grew close to 200 pounds of potatoes. We'll eat through probably 180 pounds of them, and then we'll use 20 pounds of them for the seed potatoes for next year. The old perpetual potato trick. Cabbage, I need seeds. I do have 1 package of cabbage seeds, but it has like 6 seeds in it, and I would like to grow closer to 20 or 30 cabbage. Sorghum, I already said to get the different type. Peas, I only have a few seeds, so I'd like to get some of those. Zucchini, I didn't really need seeds. I found a packet afterwards, but I had already ordered. Leeks, since I am starting those onion seeds, I might as well get a pack of leeks because I do like having leeks. Beets, I'd like to do a lot more pickled beets this year. So I'm going to need some of those. People also asked me for Halloween pumpkins last year, specifically jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. And that is about it that I'll need for seeds. All right, so then I pop on to Rainbow Seeds website. I tend to buy most of my seeds from Rainbow Seeds. They're out of New Brunswick, which I'm in Nova Scotia, so it's, pretty close. There are some local seed companies here, and I have used them in the past, but I really like the efficiency of Rainbow Seeds. The seeds come quickly, which I don't love seeds being in the mail for a long time, especially this time of year. They have a really nice selection. The prices are excellent, and you get a lot of seeds per package. Like I've bought beans before. Just when I said I wasn't going to buy bean seeds, look, here's a package. I've had bean seeds where I've paid $3 for a pack of beans, and there's literally been 10 beans in it. So here you pay $2 for a package, and you get, I don't know how many's in there, 100. So I find they really have a good value. So I had my list, and I went on to Rainbow Seeds, and I start going through. Now they did have a $50 minimum for free shipping, which I knew I'd be pretty close to once I started ordering things. So I'll start over here. This is all beet seeds. They also had a special on if you bought 4 packs, you got 1 free. And I do like these cylinder beets. They grow along and they're great for pickling. So I bought 5 packs of beet seeds. I did buy a purple basil. I thought they would look really nice in a combo pack of like annual herbs. So like a dark basil, a green basil, dill, and cilantro, or even do a 6-pack. Anyway, I just thought it would look nice. It does look nice in the contrast. Sage, I have sage growing in the garden. I don't need any more. However, I want to do some starts as well. I was looking up, I canned green beans last year, pressure canned green beans for the first time ever. I don't love them, but my kids and my husband do like them quite a bit. So I wanted to try to find a bean that was specific for canning. I grow provider bush beans, I grow dragon's tongue, and then I do a Kentucky pole bean. So this is a bush bean, but it's Bush Blue Lake is the type, and they're supposed to be good for canning. So I did get one of those. Peas, I hardly have any left, and these are my favorite peas, Sugar Snap, Super Sugar Snap. The bell pepper, I probably will keep a few for myself, but these are mostly for selling. I went back and forth on corn. I have tried corn 4 times in the past, and I have not been successful yet. But I'm going to give it one more try. I haven't done it for 3 or 4 years, but I'm going to give it another go. I don't know why. I decided, and I don't have space for this. This goes against everything I always said, but I'm going to go for it. I got a generic beefsteak tomato. I think that's all the tomato I got. Yeah, all the rest of the tomatoes are just... Oh, and I will buy the cherry tomatoes, but I have to buy them from a different store. The sorghum, I got the broom corn variety. There is an actual name to this variety that's just not written on here. I don't remember what it is. Golden acre squash, or golden acre cabbage. That's my favorite cabbage. I got a new type of lettuce. I liked our lettuces last year. I have 3 different lettuces that I grow, but I wanted to grow a 4th. Basically, I just wanted some variety. Leek seeds, those will actually be getting started this week along with those onions. And then everything over here is squash. So I got the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. I got Black Beauty zucchini. National Pickin' cucumbers. I did get 2 packages of those because I do plan on growing a lot of cucumbers. I did get an Armenian cucumber seed. The cucamelons, butternut squash, and spaghetti squash. So in total, my bill came to $59 with tax. So $59 for 24 packs of seeds, which is extremely reasonable. And that's, well, of course, the shipping was free, but that's with taxes as well. So that's my next step. So now I have my plan made. I have my seed inventory done and sorted. I have my seeds purchased. And then my next step is planning when to start. All right, so it's time. When do you start things? When do you, this is the most question I see most often in gardening forums. When do you start kale? I'm in zone 6A. To me, especially in Canada, your zone really only refers to how cold it gets in the winter. It is not an accurate representation of your microclimate or your planting out dates. In my opinion, the very most important date, very most important thing to know as a home gardener is your last frost date. For me personally, I go with June 1st. I'm pretty close to the ocean. So my last frost date, even though my mom is only 20 minutes away, is 2 to 3 weeks past when my mom's is. And she's that close to me. So we're in the same zone, but her last frost date is about mid-May, whereas mine is June 1st. And what I'll start doing around, say, June or May 27th is I really start paying attention to the weather to decide when I'm going to do big plant outs. So if you look on any seed packet, besides the ones I have, actually maybe this tomato one does, I go for a no frills brand of seeds. So most seed packets will have growing instructions on a pack of them. Yeah, 80 seeds per pack. I've bought packs of tomatoes, and this was $1.89. I've bought packs of tomatoes that, I am not kidding you, had 10 seeds in them. So this has 80. So this says, sow seeds indoors at least 6 weeks before last spring frost. Transplant outdoors 2 feet apart after all frost is gone. And then it gives you your days to maturity, which is 60. So if you don't know your last spring frost, you really don't know when to start these inside. A lot of people start their tomatoes way too early. So my first frost, oh, I even wrote it in here, last frost-ish. So I generally am going to be planting out this week. Sometimes it's not even till the week after. I just have to pay attention to the weather. So if I go back, and I think I'm a little bit over 6 weeks actually. I think I'm probably closer to 8 weeks. Let's see. So we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I could potentially start April 23rd, which I have in the past. However, I'm going to go back 8 weeks and I'm going to start my tomatoes 8 weeks past. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because I sell a lot of tomatoes to give myself a little bit of head start. So I generally start my tomatoes in the eastern shore of Nova Scotia in and around April 10th. So if you look at other seed packs, you'll see different start dates. So I'm just going to take you through my calendar, and this should give you an idea. So I'm going to be starting my onions and leeks. I don't know why, but I always pick Thursdays to write these on. No particular reason. So this Thursday, I will be starting my onion and leek seeds. That's it for a whole month. I'm going to pick up some soil at Walker's. Once again, it's on a Wednesday. I like to do go in town on Wednesdays is when I go in town. Then, so this would be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This will be 13 weeks before last frost. So full disclosure, it is several hours later. It's nighttime now, but I'm going to try to do this while my kids are getting ready for bed. Okay, so 13 weeks. And if I was just growing these for myself, I would start closer to 10 weeks. But once again, I like to have my peppers have a decent size for sale. So then the week after that, I will be starting my perennial flowers and perennial herbs, including parsley. Now, parsley is a biannual herb, but it does take a while to get started. So I start that around 12 weeks before. 11 weeks before, I'm starting my celery. Celery takes a long time to grow. And then we're down to what? 9 weeks before, we're starting our brassicas and our lettuce. Now, brassicas and lettuce are cold crops, so they can be planted out much earlier than, say, your tomatoes and your peppers, things like that. So they do grow faster as well, so they won't actually be inside under grow lights for that long. All right, so now we're coming in to April. So I have my tomatoes to start there. I'm also going to start some hollyhock and calendula. And I put in just little notes to myself. I'll direct seed some poppies in April. What I just do is sprinkle some in a plant pot. I have pot up my tomatoes, so they'll have been about a week and a half. I'll be potting up my tomatoes, and that's when the same time I'll start to harden off my cold crops so that they can soon go into the greenhouse. I don't do any direct planting besides those poppies there until around the 3rd week of April, and my first things in the ground will be carrot, beets, radish, and peas. I don't think I'm actually going to plant any carrots this year, but if I was, that is when I would plant them. Then I'm going to transition my cold crops to the greenhouse. And if I've decided to start melons, which I may, and I still already have seeds for those, I would do that this week as well. And direct seed spinach and turnip. Onion sets can also go in the end of April. All right, so now we're headed into May. So the first day of May, usually always on May 1st, is I start my squash and cucumbers. These can also be direct sown. I just prefer to put them out as starts. And what I do is I start them and I begin to harden off my tomatoes at the same time. This is purely because I just do not have space. I have start pole beans. That's a very specific type of pole bean that I tried to grow last year. I did get some of them. They're the Taiwanese long beans, but I'm going to try to start some a little bit early to see if I can get a bigger yield off of them. The 2nd week of May, I'm planting out my brassicas, my celery, my onions. I'm planting my potatoes, and then I'm starting my annual herbs and annual flowers, including zinnias and nasturtiums. Around the 3rd week of May, I can direct sow my beans. Remember, they're going to be underground for probably a solid week, and I can always pay attention to the weather as well. I don't start my corn or sorghum. Once again, I will put them out as transplants, but I will start them towards the 4th week of May. And then I will direct sow a few cucumbers, and undercover just means underneath some sort of frost protection if needed. I will start those the end of May. I usually try to do half of my cucumbers as direct sown and half as transplants. That brings me into June, so I'm hoping that my last frost is in that first week of June. And sometime in that first week is when I do my great plant out. That's all my peppers, all my squash, tomatoes, sorghum, corn, any warm plants. And then this is start cabbage. I'm going to try to do a second planting of cabbage. I tried to do a second planting last year as well, but I started my cabbage around the second week of July. I'm going to try and moving it forward and do the third week of June. Okay, so that is it for my actual planning, but there is one final step that I go through that I will show you now to complete my planning of my garden. All right, so just to show you again, this is sort of just without having the actual calendar, just what I'm going to plant. Direct sow schedule, I don't have to put the actual dates, just sort of the order I'm going to be throwing them in the ground. So my last step is I make a list of items I need to purchase. So my rainbow seeds order was $59. I've already purchased that. And it actually ended up being $50 because I had a credit. I do plan on buying weed barrier this year. I'm trying something new. It's probably going to be around $200, but I'm not sure yet. I have to price it out. I'm going to try to be doing an insect barrier on my cucumber tunnel. The cucumber tunnel will be about 15, or it will be about 10 by 20. It's an old carport. So once I get that built, I'll measure it out to see how much insect barrier I need. I'm thinking I need about a 15 by 20 piece. Soil for seed starting. I don't buy soil for my garden itself. I use my native soil as well as horse manure. However, for seed starting, I really do prefer to use the packaged soil because it has a much less incident of insects in it. I do not need to buy some new pots to sell in. I have been using solo cups, but I'd like to try to move over to more square pots just for ease of transporting. And then I will, of course, be picking up some wood chips for the garden. And then I do just sort of give myself a little quick list of tasks I want to try to complete. This is by no means complete at this point, but build my cucumber tunnel, refresh wood chips, the extra garden raspberry bed, and then elongate those front beds, which we discussed earlier. So those are the steps I take to organize my garden every year. I like to really follow the steps and do it systematically, just so I'm not forgetting anything. I also really like to order my seeds early because I do find quite a few varieties do sell out if you wait too long. This is just a little quick walkthrough of what my garden looked like about mid-June last year. A lot of bug damage on those cabbages, but I actually get a really good yield on them. Hopefully this gave you some inspiration to get your garden planning started and get you through these cold winter months, especially if you are near where I live. Even though we do have a short growing season, I'm still able to pull a great deal of food out of this garden, and it really does go a long way to helping feed my family. Look at all those beautiful potatoes. I'll have some videos coming up on different costs I've incurred putting in these gardens. This is all just on my former lawn, and very little money input to creating these gardens, which does provide quite a bit of food for us. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you'll tune in to some of my future videos. Bye now.